Thank you, first of all, to joining our first Dutch Mesos User Group meetup here in Rotterdam. We're hosting it today. You're invited by Lunatech. First of all, this is the program for today. We have some introduction about Mesos DCOS. It's going to be hosted by Taco, who's over here. And after that, Bart will, sitting in the back, still working on his presentation, I think. We'll cover the next part. That's big data, meat containers. And finally, Willem-Jan and Michael will present a showcase of big data in action. You're at Lunatech. So Lunatech is an IT company. We had 25 years of existence, celebrated last year. We're with a bunch of people. Basically, we are 86 people together, joined over 4 locations. We're having an office here in Amsterdam and 2 in France. Let me throw in the commercial right away. So we have this covered. We hire, of course. We're an IT company. So if you want to work in one of those beautiful offices, you're, of course, very welcome. But let's start saying what we do. So we're basically system integrators from way back. So let's say bringing old systems to a newer version. Backend developers that more and more focus also on infrastructure. But of course, my colleagues will tell you more about that later. We try to educate people more and more in different technologies, basically modern technologies to help enterprises modernize their IT landscape. So these are, let's say, quite a collection of technologies that we master. We do that together with some technology partners. So you see there's a bunch of partners, but today we're going to focus on Mesosphere. So why Mesosphere? We are working for a famous car brand, and they wanted to have a let's say, flexible, distributed platform. They chose Mesos to be, let's say, their way to create from, let's say, different data centers, different cloud providers, cloud solutions, and create like a giant, big computer out of that. All right, guys, I want to give the word to Taco from Mesosphere.
Very short introduction, but before I start telling about Mesos and Mesosphere, I want to just, by raise of hands, like how many of you know what Mesos is? I see some people not raising their hand, which is very, very pleasant. And how many of you are actually have experience using Mesos? Now that's less hands. So my talk will be very introductory, so it will definitely not go into the deep technical ins and outs. We can do that in a workshop or whatever, or you can call Lunatech, they have experience with it, but just to make for the rest of the people to have the right scenery, I'll just talk about why Mesos actually exists, why it started, and how that worked. So traditionally, applications were, you know, monolithic, big application, running in big application servers, and if you need to scale, need more performance, you needed to have a bigger server. All know. Now, as you all know, that is really history now, although there's, of course, tons of stuff still running that way. Now, with modern applications, especially since the rise of the internet, mobile devices, it's a totally different game. Everything is about the handheld devices, and sensors. There's a lot of data going into applications, and a monolith would not be able to handle that, especially not with the pace on which applications need to be developed. I recently heard if you act fast, you can fail fast and get an advantage that way. So the challenges, of course, is that an application is not just an application. It needs to handle all those data coming in and actually working on that data as well. And now a company that is interested in doing that could, of course, hire a bunch of engineers and work out how to install a certain software platform, because most of these platforms are all open source. But that takes a lot of time, and you train your staff to be masters of installing Spark or maintaining Kafka or actually installing Kubernetes. And that's not actually not your business case. This is not your trait of your company. You want to develop an application to get a competitive advantage. So that is actually what Mesosphere tries to do with their product, and that product is based on Mesos. So the point is, if you would deploy this all separately, you would have all siloed clusters, like a Kafka cluster, Spark cluster, a Kubernetes cluster, etc. That's a lot of infrastructure to maintain, a lot of software to maintain. So you see a lot of companies now starting to use services that are ready to go in the cloud. Amazon, Google, Microsoft, they all offer a database as a service, whatever as a service. And if you bring your credit card, they're very happy to help you. You can go online and pay, and you will have a Kubernetes cluster right away with Amazon. It's not the latest version then, but it's over. But the problem is, once you start using them, you're completely locked in, and that is something that most companies don't really want to do. For a small startup that starts early, then it's easy, it's cheap, but once you grow your business, then the bill also skyrockets with Amazon. So that's something you try to avoid. What Apache Mesos does is actually make sure that all the compute resources, all the disk resources, all the GPU resources are all bundled together and basically form one big engine. And the benefit of that is that you only need machines, and those machines can be actual hardware, actual servers, but those machines can also be virtual machines in a VMware state, or VMs on an OpenStack private cloud, or VMs in Amazon, Google Cloud, or Microsoft Azure. It doesn't matter. You can just deploy DCOS anywhere you like, and it will instantly form one big compute engine in which you can deploy your applications. I have an example of that as well. So again, if you go to the silo, you will see also the different utilization levels. So some servers might have like a 60% utilization, but most servers often run only at 10% of their capacity. So especially if you are using a cloud, that's a waste of money. So what DCOS allows you to do is to actually run all those services all on the same hardware, or basically on the same machines, which basically ups the total utilization and diminishes the number of VMs that you actually need. So we've seen with customers that basically slash their Amazon bill to 50% after just deploying DCOS, just because of the consolidation that you could what we help to do is to run all those services that a modern application needs on DCOS, and that allows a developer to quickly try out things. So if a developer thinks, okay, I have an idea to solve a specific business problem, he can just basically in the UI we have a sort of app store, so to say, where you can, it's called the universe, where you just can click and say, okay, I want this product to be deployed. You hit install, and it will deployed, because the knowledge inside of DCOS, which is a layer on top of Mesos. Mesos aggregates all the hardware. Then we have internally we have a scheduler called Marathon, which handles to distribute schedule the load over the different resources. And then we have DCOS bundles that with the UI and tooling around it to make that all much easier. So not only deployment, but also upgrading, scaling out, scaling in, things like that are all sort of transparent to the developer. So the developer can stand up his environment in minutes instead of waiting for IT to provision VMs, provision specific software, and learning how to do that. So there's a lot of benefits in that space as well. If you look at some features in DCOS, and the most notable feature is actually Kubernetes nowadays, because in the container war, Kubernetes sort of is the clear winner at this moment. I don't know, maybe in 2 years there will be something else, but Kubernetes now is, it's a very vibrant community. But everyone that has ever deployed Kubernetes themselves and making that also secure and operable will probably acknowledge that that's a hell of a job. And then once it's there, upgrading it is even more a hell of a job. So we can do with a one-click install, you can deploy Kubernetes, and that also means that you can deploy multiple Kubernetes clusters as well. So imagine a dev team wanting to experiment, and they want the latest version of Kubernetes. Well, the company has their production systems running on a specific version, and they don't want to retest before upgrading. They want to keep it running as is at that moment. With DCOS, you can just spin up another Kubernetes cluster. At this moment, in the 1.11 release, you need to run that on separate nodes. So Mesos will take care of that to distinguish which nodes are running which cluster. But in the next version, which is going to be out probably somewhere end of October, we'll be able to run multiple Kubernetes worker nodes on actually the same machine. So then you can actually have 4 or 5 Kubernetes clusters running on the same hardware. So that's really, and it's fully secured, so fully TLS based, everything. So that's really a great benefit of quickly deploying and maintaining Kubernetes. And additionally, it's vanilla Kubernetes, so we do not modify anything. We do not introduce some custom code, and that also allows us to release these new versions, because Kubernetes is released very quickly in a very quick time. For example, I think last week version 1.10.8 of Kubernetes was released. 4 days later, our customers could actually use that in a supported fashion, where other vendors are still working. For example, Amazon has 1.10.3, which has known bugs, but that's their offering at the moment. By default, we bundle these supported distributed services, and we're currently working on adding a lot of them. So the most time for us was to create an SDK that we use to orchestrate and deploy these distributed services. Now that SDK is complete, it is relatively easy for us to add new services. So while we initially concentrated on the new big data or fast data services, things like Spark, we are slowly seeing the requirements from customers to use more legacy stuff like relational databases, so not a distributed but a normal relational database. So we're currently working on a lot of new packages, and by the end of the year, we'll just add all of these into the system, and we'll be expanding that afterwards as well. So it's really a lot of packages that are in there already. So again, that helps you to make this journey into this modern application much easier, and that of course helps you to focus on the business value you want to realize with the solution. Another aspect is that we can do hybrid cloud, and hybrid cloud means a lot of different things to a lot of people. So for us, hybrid cloud means all of these things. So you could think of hybrid cloud being able to go to the edge. We have a very nice example of a customer, a cruise line, Royal Caribbean, that has actually DCOS clusters on all their ships. And they have a big DCOS cluster in a data center or in the cloud. I don't know if they have their own data center or not. And they use DCOS to give their customers a personalized experience on their smartphone on the ship. But then the data gets analyzed, and with machine learning and everything gets processed on the ship, but also being sent back to the mothership, basically the data center analysis. And even if a cruise would only take 3 or 4 days, customers get the idea that the crew and everyone knows exactly what they want, etc. So it's a really cool use case. Another one is using multiple clouds at the same time. So again, I said in the beginning, you don't want to rely on one cloud party. They could raise the prices, or you could just dependent. We see a lot of retailers avoiding Amazon because they say, well, maybe with their dark data they can analyze our traffic and our customers, where they come from, etc. So we don't want to do business with Amazon. DCOS allows you to move your workloads to any cloud. So I've told you about Amazon and Google Cloud and Microsoft Azure, but there are some of our customers wanted to expand into China, and in China there's no presence of those cloud providers, but there you have AliCloud. So you can install DCOS on AliCloud. So DCOS makes you completely cloud agnostic. And the same applies if you have a private data center and you want to burst to the cloud. It's all from one single pane of glass. You can easily scale out or into the cloud. So it's again, it combines everything to one thing. So basically, we solved the compute part of that with Mesos, and Mesos can present storage that are in the machines to the applications. But if you have stateful applications, which more and more customers are actually putting onto DCOS as well, then you need something like software-defined storage or some kind of bridge to external storage. Now, having external traditional storage, we have packages like Rexray to access that storage. But again, if you have a EMC box or a Hitachi box in your data center and you want to move to the cloud, well, you cannot ship your EMC box to Amazon. So therefore, we think software-defined storage is the ideal solution for that, and we work together with Portworx for that. And I believe that Bart Smith, who's talking later, is going to talk about that as well, because that basically solves the issue. What do we do with compute? They do with what Mesos does with compute, or Kubernetes actually. What Kubernetes would do with compute, Portworx does with the storage. So it aggregates any type of storage, which can be in the cloud, S3, or your local filer, or some local storage, into one big storage pool, and an application programmer just needs to request using Kubernetes or using Mesos, I need that much storage of that type, and it will be provisioned to him. So it's totally transparent to the actual application programmer, to the application, where the storage is coming from. So you can still reuse your existing storage as well. And again, Portworx is also such a distributed service package. You can just install from using the DCOS Universe, our app store, internal app store. You can basically click and it will be deployed. So you don't need to learn how it works. It just installed and it will be there. So again, if we look at our competition, so you probably hear, okay, we compete with Kubernetes, or we compete with OpenShift from Red Hat, or with Pivotal Cloud Foundry, or we compete with Amazon, but these are all individual players that have their own market space, but we're the only company that basically overlaps all these market spaces. And if you have an application need that requires data-intensive applications, then Mesosphere DCOS is the best solution. DCOS is actually an open source product, so we have on dcos.org the full thing you can try out and work with it, and there's a lot of companies that actually use that in production, and Mesosphere actually sells support for the open source version as well. DCOS Enterprise has some added security features and benefits like easily upgrading packages. So a good example, if there's a new release from Kafka, you can basically say, okay, upgrade, and it will do a rolling update without affecting the service. In the open source version, that functionality is not in there. So then you would need to install the new version and handle the data migration yourself. So it's really a bit, not elegant to do that. If you see what kind of customers are using it, that differs from really startups, few-man startups, to very, very large companies. Mesosphere started as a company as supporting the Mesos project. A lot of large web-scale companies like Uber, Airbnb, Twitter, they all use Mesos as their sort of framework. And slowly we thought, okay, we need to create a product so that normal enterprises that do not have thousands of engineers to be able to support such a platform can actually use the same technology. And that's what created DCOS, and the product is now about 3 years old, and it's getting a lot of interest and use of different companies, as Lunatech also. They are very involved with the car manufacturer that uses them for connected cars, and yeah, we see a lot of data-driven applications running on DCOS. So here's some example of different industries that are using DCOS. So this is just some added commercial stuff, so I'll skip through that. Mesosphere that I wanted to talk about now. So thank you very much, and let's have an applause for the next speaker.